Nation. We're back.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rocky.
And I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon.
Good job.
All right. Well, look, we got a lot to talk about. Texas's big win over Florida. Texas brought in their first SEC championship. We're going to give some shout outs there. We're going to kind of recap what happened at Florida, what went right, maybe what there is to work on, look forward a little bit to Arkansas, and then we will talk about stories around college football and the upset weekend. It was another upset weekend in college football. So we'll dive into that. What does that mean for Texas? What does that mean for college football and the college football playoffs moving forward? Lot to talk about, Rocky. Lot to dive in with and dismantle, break apart, talk about it. Let's get rolling.
Yep. We'll also give a little love to the TXSoccer winning the first SEC championship for the University of Texas Longhorns. So we'll give a little love to them in a minute too. But first, let's catch up, Megan. How's it going?
Yeah, good. I've been elbow deep and other body parts deep in job interviews. And yeah, let me tell you, this job interview process is crazy. I don't see how people do this. I'm between jobs right now, so I have the time during the day. But I do not understand how people interview while they currently have a job. I'm telling you, you've got to give your blood type, talk about your firstborn, your personal experiences. Oh, dedicate 3 hours here for an interview. Oh, take a test. Give us your idea. Man, it is crazy out there in these streets. It's been a lot of work, but the process is going well so far. I think I've got interviews with 3 different companies, and I'm pretty deep into the process with 2 of them and relatively deep into the process with one of them. So yeah, fingers crossed, man, hoping that goes well. So yeah, it's just been me doing a lot of the smiling and putting the best foot forward, and hopefully my charming personality and the crazy 20 years of marketing experience gets me through, but we'll see. It's a lot going on, but hopefully we hear some news here. How about you? Your surroundings have changed a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in Puerto Morelos. It's beautiful, beautiful here right now. It's beautiful here all year long, but it's especially gorgeous right now. The weather is perfect. The beach is perfect. It's beautifully clear. It's still dead in town. Like, it's not high season yet. So
right.
It's sleepy, which I like, because you can walk up to anywhere and grab your food, grab your whatever, grab a spot on the beach, grab a chair on the beach. It's so easy. So it's a really nice time to be here. And my friend is here with me. And so it's really nice and it's good.
That's good. Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Get away.
I think it surprised me when when you guys got your place down there and we started going a lot. It surprised me how busy it is in the month of December. But I guess it makes sense. People want to escape the cold. The snowbirds come down and they check it out. And I'll tell you, that's one of my favorite times to be there. Like, yes, the summer's great. Yes, being on the beach when it's hot and doing all that stuff is great. But man, I love Puerto Morelos when it's got all the Christmas decorations up and everybody's in that cheer and the market's going on. And it's a fun place to be. So yeah, definitely jealous that you're out there enjoying that Mexican beach life right now.
It's really great. Great time. It was a really great weekend for Longhorns too. So much happened. Let's look. They had basketball won big, football won big, soccer won big, women's basketball won big. We'll talk about it all. That was a great weekend to be a Longhorn. It's always a great weekend, but this was a really good weekend to be a Longhorn.
Heck yeah, it was. Heck yeah, it was. So yeah, shout out to soccer for bringing in the first SEC championship for Texas. Looking really great. And what a mind-blowing way to win. It was a close, if you're a fan of soccer, some of these matches can be closer. And Texas has really just shown up and shown out with some incredible performances, but none more jaw-dropping and impressive than the SEC championship winning kick. Let's show the folks that. Let's bring it up.
Yeah, here we go.
Trying to clear this out.
Missimo header down and in! Montgomery! Is that an SEC championship worthy goal? Well, on the clock.
A ball whipped into the back post, and Montgomery gets up to speed, loses her South Carolina defender, domineering header rises above every other South Carolina defender into the back post, steers this one past the post play.
Wow. I love all the angles because you really see how difficult that was. All those headers are always about timing and just from the kick to the precision to the attack to just sliding right behind the defender. That was amazing. 1-0 was enough to hang on to win that game. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Again, that corner kick coming in and the header, like you mentioned, right by the defenders. It was just beautifully done. Truly a team effort there. Just a really, really cool thing to see. So really exciting. The soccer team is going to be down on campus today. They're being honored at the basketball game and they're taking their shots. You know, I was driving on Mopac where you can see the tower and the top was lit. But, you know, as folks know, when Texas wins a game, the tower goes white and the top goes orange. And then when Texas wins a championship in the conference, the whole tower itself goes orange. National championship, of course, is whole tower orange plus the number 1. So I was looking at that and seeing the top lit. I was like, come on, man, where's our SEC championship? But they're actually doing that tonight to honor the team, had them come back. So the team's going to take pictures in front of that full burnt orange tower. It's going to be a thing of beauty. Really cool. So if you're in the area, feel free to stop by, check it out. Again, this is on Tuesday night. You can see the tower lit up orange with the team there. You might even get some interaction with them, cheer them on. Texas is now going to host the first round of NCAA championships in Austin. So there's an opportunity there as well. Really, really cool.
So what was really cool is this was happening Sunday and I was at the women's basketball game and they were showing the women's updates on the big screen during the basketball, like during breaks in the basketball. So I'll show you real quick what the reaction of the crowd at Moody when the soccer won. You can hear the Longhorn, the band, the pet band that's at the basketball playing Texas Fight for the soccer, for the women that won that game. That was amazing. And then, like you mentioned, the coach, Angie, they have the game this Friday in Austin, and Coach Angie, they interviewed her yesterday and she got to talk about the championship. And this was her call to the Longhorn Nation to get out and support this game, support the team at this.
Boston University here Friday night at 6. I'm so incredibly proud of the work that we put in this past week, and to be sitting here as reigning SEC conference champions is just phenomenal. So that's the reality, that's the truth. The other truth is we play Friday night at 6. We want Longhorn Nation out here loud and proud, and we're going to be ready to play.
All right, ready to play Friday night. It's a Longhorn Nation. Tickets are only $8 for general admission. Get out and support the Texas Soccer first round of the NCAA tournament. There was some controversy. Should they be seated number 4 when SEC is one of the best soccer conferences? But you know what? She said all that matters is they play Friday at 6 against Boston University. So get out and support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, if you're not traveling out to Arkansas this weekend, please support our Texas soccer team. They're doing awesome things. I don't know if you've seen, Rocky, one of my favorite things that they do. Coach Ange always posts this. Anytime soccer wins, they get ice cream. She takes them out for ice cream as the team right after. So I bet they had some of the best tasting ice cream there after that first SEC conference championship.
Oh, so can you imagine how nice that tastes?
Tastes a little sweeter, right? What's your favorite ice cream? I'm curious. What's your favorite? I feel like I should know this about you.
I don't really care for milky things. I will do a cookies and cream if that's what they have, but I prefer sherbets like lime, lemon, mango. Like I went citrusy, fruity, juicy, not milky.
Yeah,
I'm not a big
that makes
milky
sense.
person.
That makes
sense.
What about you? Yeah, I am so Bluebell, and now HEB does a cookie 2-step. So it's cookies and cream and chocolate chip cookie dough as one ice cream. I love that. I'm all about that. I'm not.
That's good. I like cookie stuff.
Yeah, I'm generally not like a sweets person, but ice cream is my exception to that rule. I love me some ice cream. So
I take
appreciate
cookies
that.
over ice cream.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
But congrats to the TXSoccer SEC champions. And again, the first SEC championship for the University of Texas goes to the TXSoccer women in this soccer tournament. So that's exciting. I'm so proud of them. Hopefully we get to talk to some soccer players soon. I think we're working on that. So that'll be pretty awesome.
Things in the mix there. Really fun. All right. Well, let's dive right in. More SEC talk. Of course, Texas coming off that bye week with Florida, perhaps a little bit ailing Florida coming into Austin. Expectations, I think, were high for Texas. And, you know, there's been a lot of hullabaloo and a lot of question about Texas's schedule. Is it strong? How did Texas get a air quotes, you know, quote unquote, easy SEC schedule? So a lot riding on this game in the sense that Texas controls their own destiny still. Win out, and Texas is in the SEC championship. Certainly has a potential for hosting in the college football playoffs. So Florida comes in, a little bit of injury going on there. There was some questions, was DJ Lagway going to play, the one-legged Lagway? And it turns out he did not. He did not, nope. Rocky. So Texas went on to absolutely steamroll the Gators 49-17. Let's dive into it, man. I don't know if you had seen this right before the game, but the spread had actually moved up. When we were talking about it, the spread was sitting right about 21.5, 22 points. Right before the game, it jumped up to 23.5. So there was some question, could Texas cover that? We know Florida's had some issues, but at the end of the day, they're still Florida. They're still an SEC team with big bodies, solid defense, potential on offense. And Texas ended up absolutely answering that call. What were your vibes coming away from the game on Saturday?
Well, we talked about, and we'll get in a minute about what were our bold predictions and how did those pan out. But we talked about what we needed to see, and what Sark wanted to see was getting their mojo back, getting some fire on offense, which they did, but also really taking advantage of an injured, depleted Florida. They were depleted on offense and defense. They still had strong running backs, and we'll talk about that. But, you know, they were down to their third quarterback, and they were pretty light in the DB. So we were hoping that Texas would take advantage of being able to throw the ball on them, and they did for over 300 yards. So that's what we wanted to see was, you know, to take advantage of where they were weak. And also Florida did expose some things about Texas that we'll get into, you know, stopping that run. You've talked about it before, that is it a yellow flag? It wasn't a red flag. Is it maybe becoming a yellow-orange flag?
A pink flag, let's call it. A pink
flag being able to stop the run. And we'll get into those numbers again in our good, bad, and or good, bad, and what to grow on. We'll talk about that rush defense. But I would say what they wanted to do is get their mojo back, and it looks like, you know, Sark thought they did.
Yeah, that's something that we were talking about. There's, of course, if you're playing quarterback at the University of Texas, you're going to be under a ton of criticism, no matter what you do, right, wrong, or indifferent. And Quinn Ewers certainly no stranger to that. There's a lot of questions. Is Quinn healthy? Is he back? Is he okay? Is he the quarterback that we thought he was? And I think he really answered those calls, answered those questions in a resounding fashion with a really great performance out of him. You know, we had talked about this on this program before. You know, there were some questions, Quinn, coming off of that injury going into the OU game, and then again, I believe against Mississippi State. Was it State? Who was it? Who am I thinking of right after OU? Why am I blanking out on this? Anyway, Quinn having some questions. Yeah, Georgia. Thank you. Thank you, Georgia. Yeah, with the nagging injury, Quinn wasn't quite looking like he was, and we had noted on the program that after that Georgia game, he said, you know, now I feel, the week after, he was saying, now I feel completely healthy, which leads to you wondering how much had he recovered when he was playing versus OU versus Georgia. We know that Quinn didn't look quite like the guy that we're used to seeing in those games. Actually, I think it was after the Vandy game that he mentioned that now I feel completely healthy. So I think from that point forward, from Oklahoma, from the performance at Georgia, that I think left a lot of people wanting for more, you know, there's certainly room to grow from that. I think we've seen exactly what we wanted to out of Quinn. He's taken those steps forward. He looks healthy. And this game against Florida, he really looked the part. He looked back to being the Quinn, more like the Michigan Quinn that we have seen and expect and hope for, compared to the OU or the Georgia Quinn. So I think there was a lot of good progress there. Certainly, you know, we'll dive into his numbers. We'll look at what the offense did overall and things that they did well. Atmosphere of the game. Rocky, I wanted to ask you this before we start getting into kind of the tit for tat and looking at the numbers and how the performances panned out. What did you think about the atmosphere, that 11 a.m. game? Do you think that helped Texas? What did you feel about it as a fan, the day, how it went? What are you thinking?
It was definitely sold out. It was a good showing of the fans. The crowd worked their way in. It wasn't a loud Friday, Saturday night Georgia crowd, and you don't expect it to be, but it was. The fans were. It wasn't the best crowd ever, but they were there and they cheered and they did help. I think they supported the team enough. It wasn't a Friday. I mean, why do I keep saying Friday? A Saturday night crazy crowd, but it was good. It was a good crowd.
Yeah, I'll be honest.
I was good when you have the flyover and the Veterans Day things, and
yeah.
Texas
is second to none when it comes to game day atmosphere and what the program does and what they put on. I will say I heard a lot of Florida fans walking by, through Bevo Boulevard on to the Smokies Midway going, okay, this is cool. Like they were begrudgingly admitting that the atmosphere was pretty neat there. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to call out Texas fans a little bit, man. I know it's that 11 a.m. kickoff. It is hard to get the blood pumping that early in the morning, but I really feel like the stadium didn't fill up and certainly wasn't at full capacity at kickoff. It took a little bit for the crowd to show up. And you're right. I don't think they had the juice or the energy that we see against or in later games in those 2:30 or even, of course, 7 o'clock games. I understand. Look, I get it's Florida. I get that they're injured. I get they don't have the greatest record, but this is still an SEC game, man. I really, for that reason alone, I hate 11 a.m. kickoffs. I truly do. You don't have enough time to tailgate. You don't have enough time perhaps to get properly lubricated to be where you need to be excited and up and running. But I thought the energy in DKR took a little bit to build up. It took a little bit to get there. And hopefully we see more energy out of Texas moving forward. But, what can you do?
The next game is the 2:30, our last home game of the season, which will also be Senior Day.
Right.
They've announced that's at 2:30, the Kentucky game. So hopefully this 11 a.m. sleepiness carries over to Arkansas next week, and they're falling asleep and not really ready to go. That would be great.
Hey, it's never a bad thing when a rival that hates you doesn't have enough time to get super drunk. So yeah, I think that
they have
11
a.m.
week, game,
right? They had a bye week too. They've been drinking
2 weeks.
Since that big butt kicking against Ole Miss they've had 2 weeks to drink. So I don't think the time of the game is going to make a difference in that area.
I don't think it'll affect how Arkansas fans get up and get ready, but I do think the time of the game affects how into the game they are initially. I think we're going to see a lot of energy. We can dive into this more a little bit later, but I do think that early kickoff will have somewhat of an effect because it's Arkansas. And because it's Texas going to Arkansas, I'm not quite sure that it'll have quite as much of an impact as it might against other teams, other games. But I hopefully that plays in a little bit there for sure. Well, all right. Well, let's talk about that Florida game with Texas. Let's see what they did. What did they do well? Rocky, I thought this was one where, of course, we had all eyes on Quinn. What were the expectations with him? But I got to say, I felt like Sark was in his bag for this game. He really was. There were some plays there that just, you walk away going, man, how did that happen? That's incredible. And then you go even farther. Oops, sorry. We've got somebody here where the dogs are just losing their minds. And then you walk away from it going, just a sec, guys. I'm sorry about this interruption here.
All right. Yeah, so I know what you're saying. When we talked a minute about Quinn just really dealing this time and his stats looking good and throwing for over 300 yards, but you got to talk about Sark's play calling, and not just the play calling, but the play design. I mean, let's take a look at this play. Our friend Will Bazer, he tweeted this out, and he was talking about playing off of the screen game. We know Sark is famous for his screen game and setting that up with the run game. But let's talk about how he has these multiple fakes, multiple reads. The defense is getting twisted and turned, and then the offense.
2nd and 9. Looks left and then goes deep. Wide open and into the end zone is Matthew Golden.
So it's so confusing. And Quinn the entire team does an excellent job of executing that misdirection. And of course, the play that everyone's been talking about, since even national media has been talking about this play, the misdirection for the ages, was this play, which was let's watch.
And now they go end around with Bond. Isaiah Bond, the end around, and look at Bond turning it on, and a stiff arm for
44 yards. It's just the multiple confusion. He fakes the reverse, fakes the handoff, spins around, and then, Gunnar Helm is blocking downfield. It's amazing. Something about the way he can have them so confused. And then you look at this and think so many other things can happen off of this confusing play too. It's so impressive. Sark is so creative and really leading the way. And a lot of people are going to want to do this play at their high schools or their other colleges. People are going to want to take this play. It looks so fun. It looks like they're having fun doing that. And the defense is just twisted and turned. Where do they go? How do you defend that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, apologies for that interruption over here. That's one of the fun things about recording from your home with two giant dogs. They get a little worked up sometimes. But yeah, I mean, watching those plays, that was one of those, especially that misdirection play. That's one of those that you watch it, you see it play out on the field and go, damn, that was really fun to watch. But when you go back and watch the film, you're looking at it saying, holy crap, truly, as a defender, as a defensive minded coach, how do you approach that? How do you defend that kind of motion, that kind of misdirection, and that kind of play? I thought it was just really an example of one of Sark's more brilliant plays with that misdirection, making it almost impossible to defend. And Rocky, like you were alluding to, the really cool thing with that is you can throw that look at a defense 10 times and have different results each way, a different guy getting the ball each way, but having that so much misdirection going on, so many different things. And it's hard to know as a defender where to focus, when to stay home, who to look after, because there are so many options there. So I just thought this was a game that Sark was just really having his moment. You really got to see his mind at work. And when Sark is clicking, and it's those early scripted plays, truly, Texas is a hard team to beat. That's hard to defend against. It's hard to look at. That, for me, when I watch things like that, plays like that, I get excited as a Texas fan. I don't see how you can't get excited about that. It's a lot of fun, man.
It was pretty wild, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, with these plays, to me, it just feels like the Longhorns are having fun playing football right now. You look at a game like Georgia where your quarterback isn't 100%. They just kind of felt like there was a little bit of that juice missing, that mojo, like Sark talked about. Certainly felt like it is back for Florida, and the guys are kind of clicking on all cylinders. What did you take away? You sit close to the sideline. I mean, you're that front row, you see the guys, you see how they interact. What were your feelings watching how the team interacted with each other and watching those plays pan out?
Sark mentioned this in his press conference on Monday about the communication and the celebration and the preparation. They were really vocal, but even after, when they were watching film together Monday morning, the good, the bad, the ugly, they were really cheering for, players that stepped up and had big roles this weekend. And Ryan Niblett, his role on special teams, like the whole team was really cheering for them for getting those shout outs. But what's really interesting is on the sideline, whenever someone does make a big play, a big hit, or, the interception or a big run or something, when they're coming off the field, everybody runs to huddle with them, celebrate with them, pat on the head, and they just get hugs and high fives all the way down the field. And it's a big deal. And when they go to put, the ball on the sword for the turnover sword, it's a big deal. And they all celebrate with each other. And even if it's not their opportunity or their win or their stat line that's being padded, they understand it's a team win, and they're celebrating with each other. They're so happy for each other. And that to me looks really genuine on the sideline.
Yeah, I agree. That's something that we saw. That's a new thing this year, the Texcalibur, like you're talking about, that sword that's out there that they stab it with the deflated football every time they get a turnover or do well or have an outstanding defensive play. So, of course, as Texas fans, you want to see that thing just stacked with footballs. And certainly against Florida, it absolutely was. Let's dive in a little bit. Let's talk about it. We had some bold predictions, Rocky,
Yes.
let's start off with yours. What were your bold predictions for this game, and how did they pan out?
Mine hit. So my bold prediction was over 300 yards passing. I think I even pushed it to 325. I need to go back and double check. But I said over 300 yards passing, and I said the running game would get going for over 200 yards. Let me tell you, when we were sitting at minus 10 yards forever, I was like, what was I thinking? But
A little worried.
like we just saw the play with, with Bond. Sark found a way to manufacture the run game and found a way to get the speed involved. And then sure enough, even when Wisner and Blue were moving the ball and were used in the receiving game, but it was really hard to run up the middle. Who got that established? Jarrett Gibson for over 100 yards. So I would combine still over 200 yards rushing. So those two hit. I said we would get over 500 yards of offense, and that was pretty good. And then I said there would be 3 interceptions. There were 2, and a fumble recovery. So I'll say 3 turnovers.
Turnovers. You modify it slightly.
I'll modify. Well, I said 3 interceptions, I think, and it ended up being 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery. So I'll take it. Pretty good.
Right. No, I
and
love it.
your
Yeah.
bold predictions?
Yeah. Look, I had one big one that I think we all kind of balked at a little bit. But listen, for me, it's called a bold prediction for a reason. You go big or you go home. I predicted that Texas was going to have either at or under 55 yards total in penalties. You know what? I was close, dang it. Texas ended up with 70 yards, 7 penalties for 70 yards.
Still an improvement.
So a massive improvement over the previous games that we've seen. Look, I'm not mad about it. I as much as it would have been nice to be a little bit lower, that was just one personal foul away, which Texas did commit. It was still a huge improvement over 10 penalties for 108 yards. That's something that we talked about as a key to the game. Texas really has to get those penalties under control. Not only does it hurt them in momentum, it hurts them in field position as well, which was something that we talked about was really important for this game and certainly in all of the games moving forward. So I thought there was absolutely improvement there for Texas, dropping down from 10 penalties for 108 down to 70 yards. Not as bad. Still room for improvement.
It's
still room to grow.
Technically.
Yeah, it is improvement. And look, I think this is something where it's one of those weird things where we can bitch about, but still find the silver lining. So yes, I will say, what was I thinking with 55 yards? That being said,
it was hopeful.
That's one penalty different, right? That's one penalty different. So I thought we saw a lot of improvement. Texas played with more purpose. Yeah, you could probably make the argument, oh, well, does the quality of the team that they're playing factor into that? Maybe a little bit. But overall, Texas looked more focused. That bye week did them well. I thought it really helped out with them. So that is certainly something that Texas improved on, but still has room to grow for sure.
And what's funny is in the first kickoff, when Florida kicked off to Texas to start the game, it, kicked over the back. It was touchback. And I said, well, that's one way to not start the game with a penalty, a flag on the kick return.
Right.
Don't get a return.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, and that's something that we've looked at too. We've been critical of the special teams this year with reason. Texas has been kind of a roller coaster ride for special teams over the past couple of years. We have a few years that were really great and a few years that were not so great. I feel right now we're in a little bit of that dip, right? The roller coasters kind of come down and hopefully we're working our way back up. That was something, Rocky, that you brought up. Field position was going to be really important in this game and in every game moving forward. How do you feel Texas did with that? Special teams still needs a little bit of work with the kicking, but did Texas pan out? Did it work well for the field position battle in this game?
I think overall field position was helped by the turnovers for sure. Definitely quick touchdowns off these turnovers. Huge, taking advantage of those quick possessions were amazing. The field, the punt return still not, anything to write home about, but they are. That Sark always says, what in a kickoff, what you need to do, number one, is retain the ball, and they're doing that. So Texas gets the ball to, which is all. You want more yards to on the return, but maintain possession on those kickoffs, and they're doing that. So from there, Coach Banks is a fantastic special teams coordinator, so they'll figure it out. But I'm excited that the turnovers that the defense is giving the offense, even in the Georgia game, they didn't take advantage of those. On Saturday, they did against Florida.
Yeah, I think that was a big difference comparing the two teams or excuse me, the two games that we're looking at, like you mentioned, Georgia versus Florida. A note here from John Bianco. Florida entered today's game, obviously the Florida game, having allowed just 9 touchdown passes in 8 games this season. And Quinn Ewers and Longhorns had 5. The Gators also had 9 interceptions in the previous 8 games, and the Horns did not throw a pick. So taking care of that ball really was something that Texas did better in this game. That ball control, field possession, like you said, Texas won the field position battle because of turnovers. Defense was forcing the turnovers. They made Florida make some mistakes. But on the other side of that we don't always talk about as much, Texas took care of the ball in this game. So I think that's something that's really important to focus on. Again, more to grow on, certainly. We want to make sure that we're scoring every opportunity that we have. But anytime your team can walk away in the positive for the takeaway, in the takeaway column is a good day, and you're certainly increasing your chances there of winning the game.
And it's important to note. It's important to note too that Quinn went out of the game in the third quarter because Texas had a huge lead. It was 35-0 at half. Texas had a huge lead, and he could have scored more touchdowns, right, and broken this record. And also, Texas took a knee in the red zone to end the game, so they could have really put it on Florida even more if they wanted to. But they did what they needed to do, put the game away, and then let the young ones play. And we'll talk about the advantage of getting up so that the young guys get to play. We'll talk about that in a bit too. So
yeah, look,
go ahead.
I do want to ask you this, Rocky. You brought it up. There was an opportunity for Texas to score more. Texas sitting right on that 50 point mark. Did you want to see them, quote unquote, run it up? What are your thoughts about that? About Texas showing a little bit of restraint in the end?
And when there's a clock is running out and there's just a few seconds left, absolutely take the knee. If there's still 15, 20 minutes left, no, it's not my job to stop me. It's your job to stop me. So I'm all about let the young ones start getting rotation, let the young ones get time, which is why, Florida was able to move the ball at the end because the younger players were getting, some game time. And that's how you get better. When the game is in hand, it's okay to give up a touchdown or a field goal because you take your lumps for the long term. And the younger players are in there. And then you get things like Ty Anthony Smith with his first interception, or you get, Phil Smee and all these young players getting, stats and tackles and time because that's just the lumps you take. So I'm all about going, like Sark says, all gas, no brakes. I keep the gas going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say there towards the end when we had our second and third strings in, I would have liked to see Texas go a little bit more for the throat towards the end of that game. Yeah, there was a few minutes left. Texas, took the penalties, took the knee, but there was an opportunity for Texas to score again. Once again, with Arch Manning in, with the second and third string offense in. For me, I would have liked to see a little more aggression there. I understand, and look, typically I'm not that person. Typically I'm not the one that's like, oh, run it up. You should have sportsmanship. There's no question. But I do feel like there's a little bit of a shift right now. We're in the SEC, man. This is a no mercy conference. I think any opportunity you have, especially with the questions that are surrounding Texas's strength of schedule, any opportunity you have to have those marquee wins, those big statement wins, you should take them. So in my opinion, I would have liked to see the Texas offense go for it a little bit more towards the end. Now, the flip side of that, of course, when you get too aggressive, there's always the opportunity for something really bad to happen, right? There could be a turnover. It could flip that. But in my opinion, where the score was at that point, again, it's 49-17. It's not like if you have, to me, you're playing with free money. You're playing with house money at that point. Even if something goes catastrophically wrong, it's not like the game is going to shift. Florida had already lost the game. Texas had already won the game. At that point, I wouldn't have mind seeing just one more point, get it over the 50-yard, or excuse me, the 50-point mark to really show that while Texas's strength of schedule may be in question, we're going to win the games that we're supposed to win, and we're going to win them in completely dominant fashion. So wouldn't have minded seeing a little bit more gas towards the end. That being said, this is me being greedy as hell, and 49-17 is still a statement piece for sure.
But it might help when you're back to a committee that eyeball test will matter.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that.
Yeah. So let's get into, we had our bold predictions. They worked out pretty good. So let's talk about our keys to the game, how that panned out. You said that you had that Texas needed to play their A game, make Florida one-dimensional, and limit the penalties. Do you think they did that?
I would think overall, if I'm just going to make a blanket statement, yes, I think Texas did that. Now, as far as Texas playing their A game, I feel like there was still a lot of room for Texas to be even better. At the end of the day, you're looking at it. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Quinn Ewers felt to me like he was back to being the Quinn Ewers that we saw at Michigan. He's got his groove back, right? He's got his jive back. He's got his mojo back a little bit. At the when you look at the stats again, I think it showed that Quinn was healthier. He didn't have that nagging injury lingering in the back of his mind. He was making faster decisions, making smarter decisions. And it, again, this is all just gut feeling, but it didn't look like he was worried about, am I going to get re-injured? Am I going to get hurt again? He was letting it fly, making smart choices, and feeling the game more than thinking about that game, and if it makes sense. Quinn ended up
really helped.
Yeah, agreed wholeheartedly. Quinn ended up 19-27 for a 70%, a little over 70% completion ratio. Rocky, you mentioned this earlier, over 300 yards, 333 yards passing. That's 12.
And this is all in just 3.5 quarters.
That's the point that I really
2.5 quarters, really, because he went out in the third.
Exactly, kind of midway through the third. So 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He ended up with a 235.1 quarterback rating. So listen, to the Quinn haters that have been really, really vocal prior to this game, sure got a lot of crickets out of him after this game. But again, I don't think it can be under or overstated how much that injury had been playing a role in how he was playing, in his decision making. I think what we're seeing now is a healthy Quinn making smarter choices and really letting it fly. This is what I want to see from him moving on. Were there some room? Is there room for improvement? Yeah, of course, always. We can get nitpicky about things. We can find things to get better. But overall, I thought Texas played a much better, much more complete game than they had the past few games that we had seen them. Moving on, looking to did Texas make Florida one-dimensional? In my opinion, yes. Now, you could go, if a casual viewer or somebody who's just looking at the stats, most of those, well, not most, but a lot of the yards there that Florida had, and a lot of the points that they had, came in cleanup time when Texas had their 2s and 3s, sometimes even 4s in. Not so, in my opinion, I don't think the stats really tell the full story of how Texas played this game. Overall, Florida ended up with 329 total yards, 132 passing, 197 rushing. Again, there was no lagway there. So maybe bigger numbers than we anticipated without DJ Lagway. Rocky, let's dive into that a little bit. We talked about it earlier. We touched on it earlier. Is there some concern here looking at those 197 yards of rushing?
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Yes, that was 2 running backs that combined for, Jacoby Jackson had 116 on 19 carries. Jaden Baugh, 88 yards on 19 carries. That was over 5 yards a carry between those two. You take off a few that, Aiden Warner, the quarterback, lost a few yards trying to run the ball. But for 2 players to get over 200 yards rushing, that's worrisome, especially if we're going to go into Arkansas that has a strong running game. The Aggies have a strong running game. So that's something that they really need to clean up.
Is this a case of, do you think Texas was committing too much looking for the throw? Was it a solid game plan from Florida? Or is this really something where Texas might not be as proficient in the run stop? Is it something that can be fixed? What do you think?
Absolutely, it can be fixed. It could be a system, schematic thing. It could be an execution thing. It's something that can be fixed. They have the talent. They have a strong rotation in the front, and they have good edges to pressure. I was just concerned that there was a lot of yards for 2 players. If the goal was to make them one-dimensional, they did. They made them a very good running team. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so we can move on. I was just saying my keys to the game was field position. Again, we talked about that. I think with the turnovers, that really helped. Establish a run game. They had to do that, especially if they're about to go on the road again to places where they need to control the clock, like Arkansas and A&M. So over 200 yards rushing, amazing. They got Bond involved in the run game. And then the defense, they had to get Florida into third and longs. We talked about that, make it difficult for them. 6 of 14 on third down. Not amazing, but good enough. 0 for 0 on fourth down. So pretty good. I think they did a pretty good job on defense. I mean, shut them out in the first half. I would give them an A+ for the first half of the game. Well, A, but that missed field goal was not good. But the second half, that's harder to grade because Florida was able to establish the run, and there were a lot of younger players in the second half. So I would say the starters, the A team, I would give them an A for that first half of that game.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I agree. I would give Texas's performance overall probably a B+, maybe an A-, but that is factoring in that we had players that were, like we mentioned, the 2s, the 3s were in, some even 4s got in. So I thought that was something. Overall, Texas did exactly what they needed to do. They showed up, they made sure that they controlled the game. It was a dominant performance. I would even say that 17 points that Florida walked away with is not indicative of how dominant Texas played in this game. Certainly, like you mentioned, Rocky, the running yards are something that we're going to want to keep an eye out as we move forward into Arkansas in a hostile environment with an offense that has a lot of potential to have a ton of juice. That's something that you've really got to look at. We'll dive into that a little bit more as we break down and preview the Arkansas game, but certainly something to keep in the back of your mind. All right, let's look overall impressions. What were your thoughts as you walked away from this game where Texas won 49-17 against Florida? Quick thoughts. First thing, what were your overall impressions?
Good to grow on. I mean, they've got a little bit of mojo back on offense. Defense is stellar. And when we get to our good, bad, and ugly, I have a little more thoughts on that. But I mean, I think they had a strong home performance, and I think they're on the right track. They're still staying healthy, which is huge as we start getting into the toughest part of looks like to be the toughest part of the regular season now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have to agree. I walked away feeling really good. An SEC win is an SEC win. We heard at the beginning of the season there's no such thing as an easy SEC win, and now all we've heard this whole season is, oh, Texas has such an easy SEC schedule. I don't want to hear that. It's still any game, and we saw this weekend. Certainly in the SEC, we also saw it just throughout college football. The parity is there. And any given weekend, any team can win if they come with the right game plan and they execute well. So I thought Texas did what they needed to. They showed up, they executed, and won in a dominant fashion against a team that, by all counts, they should have beat by a lot. So you talked about it earlier. Let's just dive right in. 3 good, 2 bad, and 1 to grow on. Rocky, why don't you kick us off? What are a couple of good things that you saw from this game?
Good of this game, they won the turnover battle. Huge. 3-1. And most importantly, no interceptions by Quinn, which has been a little bit of an issue the last few games. Like starting that first drive with a turnover. Didn't happen. Protected the ball. So that was huge. Jarrett Gibson did have that late fumble, but fortunately it didn't affect the game. And we heard he's been having to carry the ball high and tight around campus with the balls. That's pretty funny. Also, like I mentioned earlier, manufacturing. The second good thing is manufacturing a run game, finding ways to get rush yards, and they involved Bond in the run game. Jarrett Gibson with a 100-yard game. I thought those 2 were great. And then my third good is building this depth. 5 different ball carriers, 10 different pass catchers, 26 different defensive players with stats, really getting lots of young guys playing time, building the depth, building the experience. 3 great things, 3 good things. And what are your 3 good things?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, again, kind of going back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, I felt like the offense really found its groove again. That was important. That was a key to the game, and certainly something moving forward as this season. The games are getting harder and harder, and looking forward, if Texas has SEC Conference Championship aspirations, and then again, making it farther into that college football playoff with potential national championship implications, the offense has to be clicking. We've seen it when this offense is firing on all cylinders. Holy crap, they're hard to stop. We talked about scheming. We talked about how Stark uses motion. We've talked about it. But when the O-line is working in symphony with Quinn, when the running backs are working in symphony, when we've got our receivers where they're supposed to be, blocking how they should be, and you really utilizing that motion and that movement, this is a tough offense to stop. So it's good to see those explosive plays come up for Texas to really capitalize on those. And like you mentioned earlier, Rocky, if Texas has the ball, you've got to capitalize on it. You've got to score. You've got to make the most of the possessions that you had. And I thought the offense did a better job of that this game than they have the past couple of games. Another one, we touched on it earlier, so I won't linger too much. Clean up those penalties. I thought for the most part, Texas did a good job. There was progress there. Still room to improve for sure, but there was a big difference. I thought Texas played a cleaner game. A couple of the penalties that were called this time, in my opinion, were a little ticky-tacky, but you take what you get. And within that and within the way that the refs were calling the game, I thought Texas did a good job keeping their emotions under control and playing a cleaner, smarter game. Last thing was Texas defense. Being the Texas defense, we need them to show up. Now, like you brought up, there were a little bit of questions with the run game. That's something to keep an eye on. We mentioned this earlier. It's not a red flag yet, but I do agree that we might need to call that a pink flag. But overall, Texas did a really good job. They showed up the way that we have seen them continue to do over the season. I wanted to point out some stats. Right now, Texas is sitting at number 5 in stop rate overall, number 5 in the nation at 79.6%. So points per defensive drive, Texas is at 0.95. So again, Texas is doing a really good job at dominating and preventing the opposing offenses from scoring. If we see that continue, Texas is in a really good place. So I thought the defense stepped up, did their job. Again, always room for improvement, but this is us being nitpicky Texas fans saying, golly gee, how terrible it was that we allowed so many runs and yet, or so many run yards, and yet Texas finished this game 49-17. So fortunate position to be in. So those were the 3 things for me that I thought was really important for Texas. And overall, I think they did a good job with them. Let's look at the bad. Let's look at the bad here. Again, I talked about penalties. There was improvement, but I do want to say the personal fouls, man. Those are still continue to plague Texas. Gibson, that just, we're not looking out. The personal fouls were something that played a role in here. Like we mentioned earlier, my bold prediction was 55 yards. We ended up with 70 yards in penalties, and several of those were due to personal fouls. So got to clean that up a little bit. How about you, Rocky? I'll talk about one more, but you go ahead and give me yours. What was one thing that you thought you walked away from going, ugh, that was just not good?
Auburn only had one opportunity to kick a field goal and he missed it. So not so much that he missed the 51-yard field goal, because that is a big ask. It's that the previous play could have been a 52-yard attempt, but Quinn took a 9-yard sack.
42-yard attempt. Yeah.
Yeah, 42 yards. That's what I have. Yeah, it could have been a 42. Sorry, it could have been a 42-yard attempt, but Quinn took a 9-yard sack. Right. That's 3-point difference. It could be a 7-point difference if he, made the first down there, but he took a significant sack. So you pushed him back. That's a tough ass 51-yard field goal. Bert Auburn can kick it. We've seen him kick it, but the odds go down. So to me, that was a bad, missing his one opportunity to get a kick in. You don't know that early in the game that's going to end up being his only field goal attempt of the day. But so that was not the best. And then giving up 197 yards rushing, almost all of that to just 2 players. Couldn't stop them for the most part. That's a lot. 5.5 yards a carry is stellar when it's your team doing it. So I would like to see that. I would say that's a bad. And what do you have?
Yeah, agreed. But my last one here. So while Gibson did recover losing the ball, I'm still worried about ball security here. You mentioned earlier that Gibson's walking around campus, cradling that ball like his baby. If you see him on campus, y'all try to swat that ball out of his hands. That is the job here, right? He's got to learn how to protect that rock. Again, Texas, fortunately, did not have the turnovers that we've seen in games previous, but there's still some concern. I thought the ball security is still something that isn't being prioritized. So, again, moving forward, looking to the games against Arkansas, against Kentucky, against A&M. Those are going to be games that turnovers are going to matter. That's going to change the trajectory of the game. So I really want Texas to focus on taking care of the ball, that ball security, making sure that rock don't go anywhere, and that Texas wins that turnover battle. That's something I thought, while there was improvement, there's still room to be even better.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got to give Gibson a little love, even though he had that one fumble of the game. When early in the game, when there was a 4th and 1 back in our own end, they trusted young Gibson with the ball in his hand to go get that first down. And he was almost stopped, but he didn't give up, and he made that first down. So that's pretty impressive that they, especially because he hasn't been a huge part of the game plan the last few weeks, for him to be early and often in that game was good for him. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
All right.
I agree
So
with that.
okay. Sorry. So to grow on, what do you have for the team to grow on?
Look, I want to see the culture keep growing. I think this week we talked about it a little bit. We saw these guys just out there having fun. So I'm going to have a positive to grow on for this. The culture is there. These guys love each other. They're playing for each other. I love watching during the interviews and during pressers, having guys come in and go, they're dapping them up in mid presser, and they're hyping their guys. They get asked a question about them, and they take that opportunity to talk about their teammates, to really put that out. I think something that where this really shined through, there was a moment, and shout out to our guy Corey Mose for really sharing this. His content has been incredible lately.
He's so
but
good.
But there was a point that Jaden Blue and Matthew Golden were just hyping each other up. Can we show that, Rocky?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously a blessing, me and Blue go way back.
Originally, we wanted to end up at the same school to play with each other.
Grew up together, so, just knowing how he is and just being around him, it's pretty cool to be on the same team with him again. So
when I heard that he was coming here, I was very happy because, I knew how good he was and how much, he was going to come in here and help us as an offense.
We just go out there and play and just have fun like we played in the backyard.
For me to see him, playing as good as he is right now, it's a cool thing to see.
That just makes my heart happy. That just makes my heart happy. When, again, they're talking about, the opportunity, they could hype themselves up. They could talk about what's going on, and they're taking every opportunity to give love to players on their team. Like that, to me, shows such a huge culture shift. Before, we've talked about that. We've been doing Fire the Cannon for what, 5 years now, just about 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. There has been a shift, and I think it's becoming more and more obvious. Previously, there's certainly, I think it could be argued that there were players on the team that played for their name on the back and not the Texas on the front, right? And now you feel that love just coming out of the locker room. You really feel that these guys are playing for each other. That culture, and there's not a question. If you're not fitting in the culture and the vibes aren't there, I think Texas has been very clear that, like, that's okay. We wish you the best where you're going to go, but this isn't the fit for you. Texas hasn't been shy about that, and I think that's really been showing through. One other clip that we have real quick, Makuba was just back, so there were some questions with him. He had just finished up his presser, and yet he had to bomb in and have this to say. Let me show you real quick.
Jade bearing for Thorpe. I'm calling it right now.
Gotta love it, man. Just, again, you're gonna jump into a presser real quick. Hey, Jade, my dude, he's here for Thorpe. We were talking about the Thorpe hype train that was going on. Is that Texas PR machine rolling? I think it is, but also the players have the love for each other. So I thought that was really cool to see. Rocky, what's your thing to grow on here?
My one to grow on is, like I mentioned before, all the youth getting significant playing time, not just significant in volume, but meaningful playing time. They, so like Sark says, don't count the reps, make the reps count. Young players, Ty Anthony Smith with 5 tackles and an interception, Colin Simmons, Xavier Filsamy, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, Wardell Mack, Aaron Bryant, Alex January, all recorded tackles in this game. It's really important that, especially because there's a long season, they're hoping to play through January 20th. They need the depth, and not just for this season, but for the years to come. All this game time, this film, being able to be coached up, like Sark said, it's different when there's actually film on you that they can talk about on Monday morning and coach up, and you get to see yourself on film. And more players are getting that significant, meaningful playing time. So sometimes we consider it, oh, when you're up 35-0, it's garbage time or trash time or whatever. But to these young players, it is meaningful. It is significant. It's an opportunity to be developed in real game time. So I think that is definitely something that Texas will grow on.
No, I love that. And to kind of expound on that, we talk about it. Yes, garbage time, trash time. Oh, they get plays here and there, but this was significant playing time. And I think that's something that Texas can use in recruiting moving forward, right? There's some question of, yeah, there's an idea when you come to Texas, you're going to be around a lot of talent and you've got to put the work in. You've got to stay ready to play. And this is exactly the reason. When you come to Texas, yeah, you got to stay ready to play. You're going to have a lot of talent around you, but you're going to get your opportunity as well. And on any given day, any player can go in. And as long as they've put the work in and they understand, they're part of that culture, they can shine on any given day. I think that's something that's really stuck out when you look throughout this season and look at the different players and looking at the stats. There isn't one particular player that you go, yep, that's the go-to guy. He's getting the ball every single time. And that works to Texas's benefit. Players are getting reps. Versatile players are really coming in and having an impact. The young guys are having an impact. This is truly a team game, and these players are playing for each other, and that's showing through to the benefit of Texas. So I love that. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's really great to see some of these young guys get more reps and make the most of the time that they have while they're in. 100%.
All right. So we will come back to Texas football a little bit when we talk a little bit of Arkansas. The big preview will be Thursday. But let's look real quick at the bigger picture of college football and how this win, Texas win, hanging on and with a solid win at home, how that affected the AP Top 25. So let's look at the broader picture. I'll play the new release here of what happened this weekend. So AP again, Oregon, they dominated Maryland. They stayed number 1. Ohio State 45-0 over Purdue. So they stayed number 3. Texas took advantage of some losses and moved up to 3. Penn State took advantage of Miami losing. Indiana getting love, and they've moved up to 5. Tennessee beat Mississippi State. They're up 7. BYU, controversial. We'll talk about it. Their win over Utah. And Notre Dame still in there, number 8. Alabama, big dominating win over LSU. Ole Miss beat the snot out of Arkansas a couple weeks ago. So then we have Georgia dropped all the way to 11. 12 Miami dropped. Boise State still undefeated, but only 13. So let's look at this top 25 shakeup. What really stood out to you with Texas going up to 3 and Georgia dropping to 11? What really stood out to you?
Yeah, look, I think, we've talked about this a little bit. There is so much more parity in football right now. And it's rare. Texas has been really fortunate this year. 2 bye weeks. Texas has taken advantage of both bye week as much as you can take advantage of it and moved up a position each time that they had off. And then when they came back, they really took advantage. I think it's pretty crazy to see Texas was sitting at number 5 going into this past weekend. To see 2 top 5 teams lose really shows you just how much on any given Saturday any team can step up and win. So Texas is sitting pretty. Again, we've mentioned this, control their own destiny. But yeah, I think there were, across the board, we like to say at this point in the season, you usually see clear front runners, right? You usually have people that are coming out, 4 or 5 teams maybe that you look at and you go, yeah, these guys are dominating through and through. I don't know, Rocky, I'm walking away right now feeling like I don't know that I feel that way at this point in the season. I still feel like this weekend proved that at any given time, any team can win. Do you feel there's a dominant team right now? Do you feel that there's a clear front runner for the national championship right now? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say Oregon. Oregon has consistently won big. They've had a couple of close games, but maybe, they've managed Ohio State, which is the number 2 team in the country, who has also dominated everyone. They've managed to, they're a team right now that's getting everyone's best game, right? So here, I'll share this on the screen. This is the standings now. And you can see who's rising up, who took advantage. I would say Ohio State Texas until somebody besides Georgia beats them. Penn State, they went toe to toe with Ohio State. I don't know why they haven't beaten anybody great, but they're up there. And Indiana, you have to give love to a team that's 10-0. So I think there's the clear top teams: Oregon, Ohio State, Texas. After that, you can have a debate and question all the other teams. Alabama, definitely on the rise. They only went up to number 9, but I would put Alabama over Notre Dame. I would put Alabama over BYU. It's just all up to debate, and hopefully it all gets to play out in the playoffs, right? I'm surprised Georgia fell so much. I know they took a beating to Ole Miss, and you have to put them behind Ole Miss, but all the way down to 11. Miami, it looks like they couldn't wait to drop them down after losing to Georgia Tech. They couldn't wait to drop them all the way to 12 from 4.
Well, look, we talked about that. You brought this up, and rightfully so. Miami we've on this program, we've talked about it earlier. Is Miami really the team that deserved to be ranked that high? And you rightfully pointed out their defense has been suspect throughout this season. It has been the Cam Ward show and what he can do and the magic that he's pulled out. And Miami just really could not. Cam Ward couldn't do enough in this game, and their defense really got exposed. So I think, yeah, you're right. I think to some extent, the voters were just waiting for that moment to go, we know that this defense is questionable. We know Cam Ward's been the one winning it. We can't drop them down too much because they are still winning. And then so that loss that they had really exposed them. But I agree. Something else that you touched on, the Ole Miss win. I thought that Georgia had a deserved tumble. Again, Georgia's been a great team. They've done well until they haven't, right? Ole Miss, I think, called out a lot of things, showed that Georgia, maybe that Bama game wasn't quite as much of a fluke as Georgia would have liked you to think. I think that Ole Miss really showed that the top of the SEC is as strong as hell group of teams. And Ole Miss, I think they're the real deal. I think at some point you've got to start taking Ole Miss seriously. I know we have this conversation. It feels like every year, maybe every other year since Lane Kiffin's been there, but Ole Miss is really showing up and proving that they're going to be a team to beat. That's a team that I'm happy is not on Texas's schedule right now, and I think could wreak a lot of havoc in the SEC. What do you think?
They have 2 ugly losses, but they are playing better ball now, just like Bama. 2 ugly losses, but playing better now. I guess until someone beats Tennessee, and Tennessee will get their shot this weekend, right? So we'll see. Tennessee and Georgia could be playing for a spot in the SEC. Any hopes of an SEC championship could happen this weekend. If there's a calculator, and we can look at that on Thursday, the SEC championship calculator, and you can put in if these teams win, and it'll tell you who would be in the championship. So there is a likelihood that it could be Texas, Bama in the championship if both teams win out. If Tennessee loses this weekend, or we'll see. There's a lot of opportunity, but right now we know the one team that is in as long as they went out is Texas. If they went out, they're in. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've mentioned, Texas is in full control of their own destiny here. So win out, do your job, go into these hard plays. Again, Arkansas, and we'll talk about this more on Thursday, but Arkansas is not going to be a pushover game. That's not going to be a game that Texas can go in and just on the merit of their name alone win. That's going to be really important for Texas to go in and take that game seriously, because Arkansas is, despite their record, is a good football team and has the potential to really mess things up for Texas. So I agree. That's something there that Texas got to pay attention to and really do their job in every game that they have remaining in their schedule. I wanted to talk real quick about the Big 12 before we move on. We knew the Big 12 changed. The dynamic changed quite a bit when Texas and Oklahoma left for the SEC. Things changed out there. I didn't know it would be quite as chaotic as it has been. Rocky, did you catch that BYU-Utah game?
Yes. Well, I had it on with the TVs, but not really listening. But we were watching it go back and forth, and it was a pretty good game.
It was, and a little bit of a questionable call towards the end, where BYU, there was a foul that kept BYU's drive alive against Utah that kept it going. BYU was behind at this point. BYU comes back, wins the game. Some that we
Way
saw
back in
come out,
their own end.
yeah, down at their own end, in their own red zone, actually. Utah's athletic director, Mark Harlan, came out and reamed the Big 12 officials, saying the game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We
Here, I
won
have
this
it.
game.
Let's play it.
Let's play it.
I have it. Here we go. Oh, let me see. I have it behind this button. Let me hit play.
12 years. This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us. Very disappointed. I will talk to the commissioner. This was not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight. Thank you.
In no uncertain terms, he is called them out. I've seen some people who break down film explain this is clearly defensive holding or whatever was called. You can see the hold, it affected the play, and then other people saying this was absolutely not necessary to the call, it didn't affect the play. I don't know, but he was. They also gave up length of the field after that one penalty. The defense went on to give up the entire length of the field. So.
Right. And that's the part. I appreciate his position. I appreciate that he's upset. I appreciate that sucks to lose in that fashion against your in-state rival. That being said, you can go back and you can look at the play. There is an argument to be made. Yeah, look, if you're going ticky-tacky by the rules, yeah, it's defensive holding. The penalty existed. It wasn't something that was manufactured out of thin air. Was it a ticky-tacky call? Yeah. Could you have let them play through it? Yeah. But I don't think that dismisses the fact that there was a penalty. So while I appreciate his frustration, to your point, you're exactly right. At the end of the day, BYU was still in their own red zone when this happened. After that call, it really just took the wind out of Utah's sails. BYU marched down and ended up winning the game there. You could have done more. Yes, it changed the game, but not in a sense, in my opinion, that was egregious, right? The Big 12 refs made the call. It was a touchy call, but it was a correct call. A penalty did occur. So at the end of the day, I just thought it was really unusual. You don't normally see ADs come out and talk shit about the conference that they're in, that they just joined, especially. If that was a coach, if that was a player, fines would be going like crazy. And maybe Utah still gets fined for that, but to blatantly come out and say, we're not happy being in the Big 12 if this is going to be how it's called, that's a pretty bold statement to make.
Has he never watched Big 12 officiating before?
That's the other part of it.
Listen, I got worst.
As a Texas fan, I'm so happy to be on the other side of this and be on the outside looking in going, we're not the ones bitching about it now, right? It used to be that Texas could fuss about stuff like this and we'd be called the big babies. Oh, you're ruining the conference. You're doing this. Well, glad the glove is on the other hand. This is not us. It is fun to be a Texas fan from the outside looking in going, maybe Texas isn't the asshole that you all thought we were, right? The officiating does have some questions.
I'm sure. Another exciting game. We saw Colorado go into Texas Tech. Texas Tech took a big lead early. Colorado stormed back, blew them away. So another win for Colorado, climbing up the charts with an opportunity to maybe be in the Big 12 championship. A spot in the playoffs for them is on the horizon if they keep going the way they're going. We saw Pitt undefeated, got blown out by SMU, and then comes back and loses to Virginia. I mean, come on. Yeah, that's when you get beat twice. But let's talk quickly about the Bama, kind of just the big games over the weekend. Alabama went into LSU. It was almost a game for a minute, but then it was the Jalen Milroe show. He's, National Player of the Week to a bunch of big college football people. Fantastic effort. It was just Superman performance. But let's talk about that. It blew them out 42-13. One of the big controversies actually happened way before the game, and it was the Tiger. the bringing in a tiger that was not Tiger Mike, right? So Mike the Tiger or whatever. What was your thoughts on that?
I thought it was ridiculous that LSU did that. Not only LSU's a vet school, right? They're a state school. They're a big vet school. Their vets were vehemently opposed against this. They said this isn't Mike the Tiger. He doesn't need to be in there. Not only that, but the guy that brought the tiger in, the person that was in control of this tiger, who the tiger belonged to, has a history of exotic animals escaping his control. So twice before he's had exotic animals get loose and get out. On top of that, Mike is an incredible mascot. You have this beautiful enclosure, this beautiful habitat across from LSU Stadium. Putting a young, inexperienced tiger in that hasn't been desensitized, hasn't been trained, throwing them in a tiny cage and throwing them into this crazy environment. For me, look, I'm going to sound like a bleeding heart hippie liberal here, but it was a shitty thing to do to an animal that was not prepared for that environment. Every time they went to that animal, every time they showed the tiger, it was panting. It was in panic attack. It was it was distress. This was not a happy animal. It had no idea what's going on. Again, Death Valley is a tough place to be in. The lights, the sounds, all of that crazy stuff. I'm all for live mascots, but there are certain animals that don't need to be live in those environments, and certainly don't need to be in those environments when they haven't been desensitized to it. This moment just felt gross and awful. And I know that the governor of Louisiana has been defending this. And honestly, he's been dissing LSU in the process. He said, he stands by, he said, well, one tiger showed up to that game and we're still waiting for the others. I'm like, how are you going to be the governor of Louisiana that literally everybody's an LSU fan and talk shit about the team while making a huge controversial decision to have that tiger there? That wasn't even up to LSU. That was like the governor bringing it there. I thought it was trash. I hope they don't do it again. I felt bad for the animal the whole time. I don't know. Where are you at that? Am I overreacting to this?
Fortunately, the stadium was almost empty by late in the third quarter because so many fans were bailing on the team because they were playing so poorly compared to Alabama. But another thing that did happen, controversial in this game, apparently we were told only Texas does this, but they were throwing bottles on the trash and debris onto the field.
This is just stupid. Yeah. These are back in the day.
Yeah, so they did that too, but we were told only Texas does that.
Well, the thing is,
it's terrible. You shouldn't do it. Texas looked stupid when they did it, but let's not act like only Texas does that when things aren't going their way.
And let's talk about this.
They didn't get the call overturned, right? Because they're not like us.
Let's talk about this as a Texas effect. It was hard to hear the audio there. But they were saying, oh, this is stupid. You shouldn't do this. But Texas was brought up. Texas started this trend. Like hell we did. Listen, we've seen, this was a huge story, 2 years ago with Tennessee bringing in the mustard and throwing mustard onto the field. I agree. It's a stupid trend. I don't like it. I hated it when Texas fans were doing it. I was yelling at Texas fans to get your shit together. Stop doing that. It hurts your own team. It's a bad look. What's crazy to me is to see the Texas effect and the national brand that Texas is. Yes, it may have had an effect. Maybe it overturned what the refs were calling in that game. But to act like Texas has ignited this movement, I think is giving too much credit to Texas. Like, people have been throwing things on the field for a long time. Drunk fans at a night game that isn't going their way and get a call that they think is shitty, throwing things on the field, that's not new territory. That's not something that Texas invented. So can we please just end that narrative that Texas is the one sparking all of this horrible change in college football? I hate it.
Yeah, I hate it. All right. One more thing, college football this weekend, that was huge news. We kept saying, why is Missouri so ranked? They are finding ways to win. I don't understand it. It was a drama game with Oklahoma this weekend. Oklahoma was actually favored going into Missouri. They were the game was 16-9 with 4 minutes left, and then all hell broke loose. There was 2 different fumble recoveries brought back for touchdowns. I'll show this one here because it was pretty amazing. There was just all kind of chaos in the last minute of this game. Oh, and it's in Spanish.
En español, believe it.
Lo consigue absolutamente nada. Balón libre, fumble. Lo recupera, scoop and score. Billy Bowman. Billy por la banda derecha. Touchdown. Oh.
Por el scoop and score.
Listen, I don't care who it is. I know this is OU. Every call is better in Spanish. I'm just saying that. As the whitest of white girls, I'm saying that every call in Spanish is better. Just hard stop. Hard stop.
So Oklahoma takes the lead, and then Missouri takes the lead, and then Oklahoma has an opportunity.
I've just got to say,
What else?
I think it is going to be analyzed for years to come how the Oklahoma Sooners abandon their quarterback in Dylan Gabriel for these 2 young quarterbacks that just have not panned out. Look, again, I'm saying this as a Texas fan that has suffered through the lows of recent Texas football and is now enjoying the highs that I used to experience in my college years. I feel no pity for OU fans and what they're going through. Can I empathize? Sure. I understand where you're at. We've been there. We went through the Charlie Strong years. We watched Tom Herman do some dumb shit on and off the field. But I don't feel bad for OU fans who were insistent that getting rid of Lincoln Riley was the best thing, that Venables was the next coming of Christ, and that, Hawkins or Arnold were going to be better quarterbacks than Gabriel ever brought him. What a crazy time to be an Oklahoma Sooner. I can't imagine, man. But as a burnt orange person, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm living for it. How about you, Rocky?
I had to share a couple of tweets that I bookmarked because I thought they were heartbreaking. This isn't Oklahoma football. I'm like, yeah, it is. We have just witnessed the worst, I think he meant worst, season in the 21st century, led by yours truly, Brent Venables. What a dumpster fire. I'm convinced that God hates OU. So many misplays, so many unlucky breaks, and it never ends. Well, they got Bama next, right? Don't they have they have
made the odds?
I need to look at their schedule, but they have still they may not, they probably won't make a bowl unless they really upset someone. So
yeah, at this point in the season, I don't know that OU gets bowl eligible. You brought this up in our last episode. The rest of OU season is kind of a gauntlet, and the way that OU's been playing, I don't see any hope for them of being anything significant this year. They are at risk of not even making a bowl game. And again, as a burnt orange person, as somebody with burnt orange coursing through my veins, I am mad about it. Suck on it. That's what y'all get. Look, I know it's tough, but we've said this over and over again, and I will continue to say this until I'm blue in the face. Brett Venables is a great DC, but I am not convinced that he has the CEO capabilities that are necessary to be a head coach at that level. And until Oklahoma comes to terms with that, nothing's going to change. Now, that being said, I hope they extend Venables another 10 years. Let me ask you this, Rocky. Do you think OU, with the position that they're in, I think that seat is getting warm for Venables, but does OU even have the money to buy him out after the recent extension they just gave him?
They did give him an extension. They got to believe in him. It seems like some coaches are going to fall along the way while he keeps his job. And I don't know what coaches they're going to get that they're going to pay enough that are going to leave their job for a coach that's probably on the hot seat. Yeah, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to bring someone to Norman, Oklahoma that's going to help save his offense. So,
but do we see Venables in this position for another year, another 2 years? I mean, does he stay the head coach of OU?
I would think they would give him another year, even though he is the one that has mismanaged this roster.
Yeah.
Right now
I'm here for it.
People under the bus, right?
As a business decision, I think it would be silly to keep him, but I appreciate that you may not have the money. And to your point, who do you bring in? Not just on a coordinator position, but like, who do you bring in his head coach? Who's going to move? I've heard rumblings that they want to go after, I think it's Shane Beamer, maybe. But, OU's in a tough position. I don't know financially with the move to the SEC and the payout that they had to make along with Texas to the Big 12 to make that move in 2024. I don't know that OU's in a financial position to fire an entire staff, to fire a coach that they extended just recently, and pay the big payout to get
That's a lot of
anybody
money.
worth a shit to come in. Again, can I say this as a Longhorn fan? It brings my heart great joy that our two biggest rivals in OU and A&M are having, had coaching issues, and they're having to pay out the nose to try to figure that out. I'm not mad about that situation. I love it. I'm living
But it
for it.
looks like A&M did find their coach.
1000%. And that's something that we've said. I thought Elko was a good hire, and I will give credit where it's due. Elko's doing better for A&M this in his first season than I thought he would do. I thought he was a good hire. I thought he would build something at A&M, but man, they've really been showing up and showing out. That's impressive work for Elko in his first year at A&M.
All right. So before we wrap up big college football talk, let's look really quickly on what's happening now with the college football playoff bracketology. As it stands right now, they have Texas winning the SEC championship and being a 2 seed. Wow. Okay. So they have Ole Miss playing Notre Dame. That would be at Ole Miss. They would have Boise State going to Ohio State. That'd be fun, the run game. They'd have Tennessee going to Penn State, and then Alabama, Indiana, and that winner going to Texas, with Indiana going to Alabama. Woo! This all looks so fun, right? And then, wow, that would be so fun. This looks really good. But they have SMU winning the ACC and getting a 4 seed.
Look, if you put it out there, if you had told me at the beginning of the season, and I'm here for it. I love the Smooth Ponies moving forward. I know that's an old Southwest Conference rivalry, but I don't have enough hate in my heart for the Ponies to be mad at them. If they made it in the first year that college football playoffs expanded to a 12-team playoff, if you were to tell me that they were going to be hosting and have a bye week as a number 4 seed coming in, I would have told you you're completely full of shit. But look at them go. Congratulations to SMU. Maybe with one of the easier paths forward and one of the more the less competitive of the Power 4 conferences getting that automatic bid. But you can't say they haven't put the work in this season. So good for them. That is what a crazy timeline we're living in right now.
How do you feel about, let's see, they have Oregon, Penn State, Indiana, Ohio State, 4 Big Ten teams, 4 or so big SEC teams, independent, a Big 12, and an ACC. How do you feel about them leaving out, only getting in 1 Big 12? It's like you have to be the champion of Big 12 to get in, or the champion of the ACC to get in. There's not even leaving room for a second. You can see Georgia, Miami would be out even if they played in the championship game. Colorado would be out even if they played in the Big 12 championship game. And then, of course, the group of 5 contenders with Boise State, and then the independent with Notre Dame. How do you feel about them giving so many spots to the Big Ten and SEC and leaving all the other conferences with 1 spot?
Yeah, look, I think that's about right. As entertaining as the Big 12 has been to watch, it's been fun football to watch, but that doesn't mean it's been good football to watch. The Big 12 has just kind of collapsed on itself, and it's a little bit of a chaotic conference right now. So, yeah, while it's a little weird to say, oh, the SEC is going to put in 4, I mean, I think that's more expected given the hype about the SEC over the past years. But seeing the Big 10 host 4 teams or potentially have 4 teams in there, while on its surface you go, oh, that's too many from both of those conferences, you can't, in my opinion, you can't look at the top 25 right now and pick teams in the situation in the conferences that they're in. I can't pick other teams that'd be like, yep, they should be in over this team. So yeah, it's a lot, but I think that's giving credit to the SEC for the strength of the SEC. I do think there's some questions with the Big Ten. To me, this feels like a top-heavy conference. The same argument that I've made against the SEC in years past, I'm going to make against the Big Ten right now. And again, I'm saying this as a Michigan State fan as well. Michigan State being one of those bottom-tier teams. Michigan State isn't scaring anybody. The bottom 2/3 of the Big Ten isn't scaring anybody. So I think they're getting a lot of credit for that top-heavy schedule. So if there's any question, maybe it's in the Big Ten, but at the end of the day, it's hard to deny a 10-0 team for going in, right? Yeah, is Indiana the end all be all of college football right now? No, but they're at when you look at it, they're still 10-0. That's hard to take them out. It's hard to say there's other teams that are more deserving. What are your thoughts looking at it?
4 of the top 5 teams in the country are Big Ten. So yes, they are top heavy, and they will have to play each other over the next few weeks. Indiana still has Ohio State. Like that'll work itself out, I think. All right. So we talked about that. Texas looks like they've moved up to a bye, winning the SEC championship prediction. Wow. All right. That's what a good showing on offense will help. So another good showing because of the good performance. Some award and watch lists have come out. We'll quickly talk about those. Texas offensive line, Joe Moore Awards semifinalists. We know that's a huge goal of the offensive line is to win the Joe Moore Award, the best O-line in the country. Quinn Ewers is now a semifinalist for the Joe Maxwell and Davey O'Brien Awards. We know there's a quarterback awards. Jade Barron and Anthony Hill Jr., both semifinalists for the Bednarik Award. And then Matthew Golden got East-West Shrine Bowl Star of the Week. That's pretty good. So he's getting some love for how much he's on the field for Texas. All right. So we have a couple of fun stories. We'll share some top sports stories that we'll share, and then we'll wrap up. What did you want to highlight, Megan?
Yeah, look, we talked about Ole Miss earlier. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. The SEC recently announced that there would be heavy fines for fake injuries and coaches taking advantage and having their players, fake an injury to gain some extra time. Perhaps you're out of timeouts. Perhaps you just need to buy some time. So is Lane Kiffin reaching into his bag for some crazy alternatives? I really want to bring this up. So in the most recent game, Ole Miss, this play was stopped for a minute because there was a squirrel out on the field running around like crazy. And when it was suggested that Kiffin is releasing squirrels onto the field instead of faking injuries now with the penalties, and it was implied that it was really smart, Kiffin responded with the monocle emoji. I don't know, Rocky. Do you think that's
about that?
Yeah,
he's funny. Lane Kiffin is great on social media.
Let me tell you,
I think he's great.
Yeah, we used to talk about, Mike Leach was always great for a soundbite. I think Lane Kiffin is right up there with him he's always great for that soundbite or to give you that intriguing little piece. He understands how to work social media. So let me ask you this. Do you think he has an army of squirrels ready to unleash hell on his games when he needs some extra time here? Was this intentional?
Sure.
Why not? Why not?
All right. So another fun thing we wanted to share was recruits Casey. I think I have it here.
Yeah, Casey Barner sharing some pictures and some of kind of behind the scenes shots. Again, we know that this game, Texas hosting Florida, was a big recruiting weekend for Texas yet again. And we got to see a little bit behind the scenes here from Casey Barner. Do you have that to pull up?
I did, but now I don't. So never mind.
That's all right.
I'll get to it in a second.
We'll share it.
Yeah, we'll share it in a second. But I did want to show too, Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons has a charity called Clay's Color Crew. And of course, our buddy Corey Mose, who's on top of everything, shared a great video where Anthony Hill joined him to do some charity work for the Central Texas Autism Center. So we always love to celebrate when the young athletes are out in the community and giving back to the community. So if they surprise the kids at the center with Texas football players, look at this. This is awesome. Just doing good work and using they have very precious free time, right? Their free time is few and far between. And when they make an effort to do things like this for the community, Corey Moe shared this story. Thank you for always sharing the positivity of what the athletes are doing.
No, I love it. And a little bit of background on this. So it's called Clay's Color Corner. And it benefits children with autism and really using that power of social media and NIL. But Alfred Collins' brother, his younger brother, Clayton, has autism. So that's really what inspired him. And I love that it is something that is deeply personal to him. And he's helping spread the word and helping spread awareness. What a cool thing. Again, we talk about the X's and O's a lot. We talk about the culture behind this team. But I really think that's shining through, and all of the wonderful works that all of these players are doing. Again, with Alfred Collins starting Clay's Color Corner, we've seen Hayden Connor with his Pause for a Cause. We've seen a lot of our guys just really rally behind these causes and these foundations that they're putting together, moving forward to the future. What a cool thing, man! It makes my heart happy, and it makes me so proud to be a Texas Longhorn. I love it.
All right. I found the video we were talking about. This is Casey Barner, who has shared his tour of the campus. Look at these facilities. So beautiful. He put together a little mini movie for us to show his tour of the campus, the facilities.
Let me tell you, it's a different world now in college football and college football recruiting, to see all this stuff, to have skee ball and basketball and pool and all this crazy stuff with the facilities, the weight training, again, highlighting the icy whites and the home orange, plus all of the different Nike pieces. Like, what a cool thing to see. You got to say, this is a powerful moment for Texas in recruiting, in that Texas first year in the SEC is currently sitting number 1, of course, controlling their destiny, has to win out, but in control of what they do. But the facilities, it's grown. It's certainly improved under what it was before under Charlie Strong and Tom Herman, and really being able to bring these recruits in, show them what it means to be a Texas Longhorn, show them all the cool things that they can be a part of. Just a really neat time. Just a really neat time in Texas history. So I hope Longhorn fans appreciate it, and all the good things that are here to come. It's just a fun time to be a Longhorn, Rocky. Like we started off saying, it ain't a bad day. It ain't a bad day to be in the burnt orange. All right, y'all. Well, it looks like Rocky is finishing up there in Mexico. Might have a little bit of a connection problem. Until then, we will preview. We appreciate y'all listening. Again, we are on Spotify and Apple. Listen to us on your favorite podcasting moments. Right now, you can always follow us. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. We are at Fire the Cannon Podcast. If you want to follow us on Instagram or on Twitter, or X, as the new kids like to call it, we are at Fire the Cannon and the number 1. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you being there. Please join us live every Thursday from 3 p.m. Central to 5 p.m. We want your questions. We want your input. We want to hear from you. We will be previewing Texas traveling into Fayette Nam and taking on the Arkansas Hogs as we look forward. So please join us Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. Central. As always, I'm Megan. Rocky will join us a little bit later. We appreciate you being here. Hook 'em, y'all.